Hello, mate. Nice to see you again.
Hello, mate. Good to see you.
How did you enjoy that wonderful, what's the word for it? The extravaganza under the lights at night time. So different. What do you think?
The sauna. Yeah, I mean, it's just such it's the one race in the year where every single one of the drivers looks like they're going to die when they get out the car. And part of me loves it because I'm like, this is amazing. What they're doing is incredible. Like losing 10 liters of water or whatever the number is, like this incredible physical experience they're having. But when you look at them, some of them look like ghosts, like people sitting down in the cool down room, people sitting down in the post race interviews on the ground because they are so destroyed. It really is the moment in F1 where these drivers get put to the test physically, isn't it?
Yeah, it reminds me of the race in Qatar. I think it was 2 years ago where they had a mandatory number of pit stops. So the teams and the drivers basically treated each stint as like a long run quali stint, and at the end of it they were all practically passed out. Yeah, there's just something about that feat of endurance and the ability of the body to withstand such extreme conditions where you're sweating and there's the heat, but when you have that humidity, the sweat doesn't actually cool you down. You just like sat in a bathtub of environment. Horrible stuff. But
it's
it
was actually
this is what we ask our drivers to do.
It is for certainly for that race. It is, and it was interesting because actually there was a bit of kind of pre-race kind of ramble about how they actually train in ice baths. I don't know if you saw any of that, but actually for races like this, a month leading up to this race, they kind of practice kind of going into ice baths beforehand to cool their core temperature down. And one of the drivers was saying, I think it was Lando was saying it works for the first half of the race, so you can get your core temperature in an ice bath down for the first 30 odd laps, and then it just means nothing for the second 30. Which I thought was really interesting. So there's like a science. It's a bit like any sport where they're like developing ways of making it better for the athlete. But apparently the ice baths only really bring your core temperature down for half the race, and then you're just in the same boat. Did you see that Max refused to wear the new cooling bodywear?
No, I missed that.
So basically, for this race, I think everyone's just scared of someone dying in their car of heat exhaustion. But for this race, they developed this whole new cooling body pack kind of that you wear more than they already wear. And Max was just like, I'm not wearing it. What's the point? It's hot anyway. It was just like classic Max. Just like, I thought that was quite funny. It's almost like he hates anything kind of new. Like he hates sprint races. He hates, just like, don't bring this new technology to me. Like I'm fine. I'm just a racer. That's all I do.
He's a renegade. He's a rule breaker. He doesn't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
But speaking of splitting the race in two, I've got a proposal I'd like to suggest and see what you think of it. I reckon the Singapore Grand Prix weekend is a really good candidate for a sprint weekend. And I reckon they actually could flip the script and start the weekend with sprint qualifying. No practice, just get straight into sprint qualifying and have qualifying for qualifying the race in the nighttime, just like they do. So instead of having daytime sessions and nighttime sessions where you basically don't really learn much in the daytime sessions, it's not representative of the real race conditions.
Yeah,
so their FP1, their FP3 sessions are basically throwaway sessions. So why not actually use the day sessions as their own sprint quali and sprint race, and have the night sessions for one practice, one quali, and then the race, and have sort of two halves to the weekend play out in parallel. What do you think?
I'd be so there for that. Max would hate it because he's all about, and I think a lot of the drivers are probably all about gathering data in those sessions. I don't think many of them love the sprints because actually to dial the car in, you want those FP1, FP2, FP3s. But for on the viewer side, and I mean, I'd probably say like you probably want one practice session just to get a sense, just for safety almost, to make sure everyone. I mean, there was drivers out there last night who'd never driven on that track before. So I think you probably particularly for the rookies, you probably want at least one practice session. So maybe you could do a morning practice session, and then a lunchtime sprint quali, and then a sprint the next day at lunchtime. I don't know. What do you think?
Interesting.
I say to my children all the time, what's the compromise? What's the compromise?
The other thing you say is, measure twice, cut once. Yeah, I see what you're saying about the rookies, although we do put rookies on track that they've never been to before pretty often, just not in a racing situation.
But we normally give them 3 practice sessions, right?
Not in sprint weekend format, we don't. You get in and you get it done quickly. So that's.
But this is my compromise. Let's do what you're saying, but let's give them one little practice session, James.
Okay, I'll meet you there.
Or do you want them just to go straight out for sprint quali? Is that what you're saying?
I do actually.
Straight out.
But I'm willing to meet you halfway. But what I will say is they spent, what was it, a month leading up to the thing, practicing the physicality, and they also have an army of test and development drivers doing hours on the simulator. So I reckon they can turn up and hit go from pretty much minute one.
Yeah, they're in F1. They should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, how quick did that track rubber up? That was just insane. I'd love to know which track of the year goes from kind of slick to rubbered up the fastest. I'd have to say I'm guessing Singapore is one. Like, I mean, street circuits, right? They're just, you know, they're not a race circuit all through the year. Singapore is, you know, like a few of the courses throughout the cycle, is just regular traffic. But oh my goodness, when that starts to rubber up and the lap times start coming in, it's quite phenomenal. And it makes you think, why would you ever in quali not want to go out as the very last car, apart from the risk of red flags and stuff, which, you know, it is always a risk. But like the rubbering up on that track, the fresh rubber being laid down, it was immense, wasn't it, this year?
I love that dynamic though, where you have so many hours built up throughout the weekend up until the point when the race is about to start, where everything's been all about the trade-offs between different tire compounds and the setup. And then on Sunday, there's rain. And it's like the entire script gets thrown out because none of the teams have done any intermediate tire running throughout that entire weekend. So they're all just kind of guessing based upon what they know about their cars and what happens when they change to a wet weather setup. And it's just that element of uncertainty and chaos that comes in, and there's all this chatter. Ooh, who's going to start on slicks? Who's going to start on wet weather tires? What's going to happen? And ultimately, they just all start on slick tires anyway. But there's that element of chaos and uncertainty that I love. And you get it at a circuit where there tends to be kind of environmental variety. You don't get that kind of thing in Bahrain, for instance. You know, it's just not a feature.
Yeah, it's good. Well, Max started on softs. What did you make of that decision, and how do you think that served him?
Well, it didn't really work out for him in the end in the way that he wanted. So, you know, he would have been hoping to get a jump off the start, zoom down the inside and get past Russell. And he's historically a good starter. So you would think maybe that's the case, but he started on the left-hand side of the circuit, so not on the racing line, not a good place to be trying to get that extra traction or grip off the line with those softer tires. And it just didn't quite work. So bit of a shame. For Max, this remains one of the only circuits that he's never won. On the current calendar, he just can't seem to crack it. I like to think of it as his kryptonite circuits, the one that remains elusive to him. And then after the start, he just lost sight of George Russell. Russell was in another postcode like pretty quickly after the race. Yeah. Which is not what I was expecting at all. Is that like, how did that sit with you?
Well, I'm just still not really getting used to Mercedes being quick at all. And I feel like it's kind of creeping up on us. And I don't even know if Toto expects his team to be quick. Like, he just sits there looking kind of slightly bemused. But yeah, I mean, like, Kimi P5, George P1, and George was just unbothered the whole race. I mean, are Mercedes, in these final kind of 8 races of the year, are they dialing this car in? It kind of feels like it. And I think what's so great about this moment is not only that Max has been winning races against a dominant McLaren. Now we've got Mercedes winning races or winning a race. It just feels like, this season could go anywhere. Obviously George can't win, and Max has like a 1 in 100 chance of winning. Everything would have to go his way. But this is kind of like the F1 season I think we've all been waiting for. Like, maybe there's two. We talk about Max being the joker in the pack, upsetting the McLarens. We talk about that a lot on this podcast. Bring on George being a bit of a joker in the pack. I'm here for it. I'm here for a quick Mercedes, and I'm here for Kimi coming out of the doldrums. Like P5, okay. He started on the grid at P4, went to P5, lost a place. That's fine. Like,
to Norris.
Really
Norris zoomed past him, as did Leclerc. Sorry, not Norris. Leclerc.
Yeah.
Leclerc got a great start off the line, jumped past him. I mean, you can't fault that, right?
What side did Kimi start?
He was P4.
Yeah, he started on that side.
Yeah.
So he started on the same. That side of the track was really, really tough. Who else started there? Lewis started there, and he got screwed as well. Everyone who started on that side of the track got... Okay, so that's another thing we now know about Singapore is like, you don't want to start on the left. You want to start on the right.
Do you remember... But it's so hard to game that, right? It's hard to actually get that done.
You can't.
Do you remember back in Spa when Norris was complaining about the right-hand side of the track being wetter than the left-hand side? Yeah, that's funny.
And he kept running. The race engineer kept telling him to plow it, a water plow.
See if you can clear some water, please. Yeah, and I remember, I think it was back in the Red Bull Ring a year or two ago, where I saw footage of Alonso doing practice starts in his grid box. In the laps to the grid, they can do practice starts, and he would pull up in his grid box and lay down some rubber in order for the start of the actual race to go well for him. So
very smart.
There's an element of racecraft in this as well. I don't know. It'd be interesting to go back and look and see if any of the drivers did that to try and prep their grid boxes a little bit more. But yeah, that left-hand side of the grid, not so great.
Definitely not in this track. Should we talk about the controversy?
What controversy?
Should we dive into it?
Actually, before we get to that, I love how the season's unfolding as well. Just like you, I think it's great to see this kind of coming together of all the different teams. It really does feel like it's sort of culminating in this interesting way. But I wonder what has happened to the McLaren dominance. We haven't seen it in at least the last 3 races. There hasn't been this papaya advance march going out the front with all the other teams, some way behind. It actually makes me think that whilst they've just wrapped up the Constructors' Championship, the Drivers' Championship, they should not consider that to be a lock and have all this papaya rules and who gets what and who gets to eat the first slice of cake. They should be careful because Verstappen is within reach. It would not take too much for him to be able to get there. I don't think it's a 1 in 100 chance.
Let's look at the numbers. So Piastri is 336 and Verstappen is 273. So let's do some quick maths. So it's about 60 odd
65,
points.
I think it is.
So it's like a couple of DNFs on the McLaren side, or seeing Lando and Piastri run into each other and take each other out.
Or for them to score 3 or 4 points apiece. It's not too much of a stretch. I worked out before the race that if Max finished first in every race and every sprint, and Piastri finished second in every race and every sprint, then Piastri would still win. But I think that's not looking likely for either of those conditions. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't write Max off. I think he's not out of the title fight by any stretch at this point.
It's certainly feeling like he's not. It's well, I guess we've got, how many races have we got left? 8.
We got 6 plus 3 sprints.
609.
So there's still something like 200 points.
Nine opportunities to score points.
Yeah, 200 odd points remaining.
Yeah.
It's definitely doable. And Max, you just can't count him out. One more sidebar before we get to Papaya. Antonelli just doesn't seem to perform well in Europe. I think that's my takeaway from this season. He's performed brilliantly, mostly away from Europe. Bring him back on home soil and he's going to flop. But get him back over to the Middle East or to Asia and he's good as gold. So bring on Kota.
Yeah. European, European jitters, let's call that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Exactly. So what controversy are you talking about? I don't understand.
I don't know. If you don't think there's a controversy, then let's move on to another topic because it sounds like it wasn't one.
Educate
so
me.
I'll drop that.
What's the controversy?
Oh, I don't know. Something about Lando Norris kind of making a move into the turn on the first lap that when bumping into Max and then bumping into his teammate and damaging his front wing,
flipping and then for the rest as he went by.
And from the rest of the race, Piastri crying about it all the way home and saying it's not fair. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's not controversy. It feels like the whole of the media, everyone talking about F1 has considered it one. But I'm glad you don't. Tell me why it's not. That wasn't controversial.
Well, like we talked...
Or were you just trolling me by saying... What controversy?
A little of column A and a little of column B. Let's be fair.
Yeah, let's be fair.
So a lot of the talk at the start of before the race was that there was some water. It was wet. It had rained, but it was kind of drying. So on the start of the race, when Lando lost a little bit of control and gave Verstappen a bit of a love tap from behind, and then bashed into Piastri on his right. I look at that as being bold, aggressive, perhaps a little bit, too risky and not quite sure of the grip levels at turn 3. But kind of just like racing. He's trying to get ahead. Piastri did much the same thing to him in Monza last year when Norris actually had a title fight at that time. So I didn't look at that and think, gosh, that's rude. That's just racing. He wants to get ahead. They're both in title contention. So I didn't see controversy there at all. If anything, maybe the more controversial thing was Piastri's whinging about it on the radio afterwards, saying that's not fair, crying into his cornflakes, so to speak. So I didn't see anything controversial in that thing. Maybe you could say, okay, look at the season, and there's a bit of a storyline emerging of McLaren sort of not giving Piastri the good controller and, those sorts of things, thinking that maybe there's a bit of a favoritism going on there, but I think it's a beat up by the media and I don't want to be a part of it.
Totally agree that I think that's beat up by that. Well, I think it's certainly beat up by Piastri fans. It was... I think a couple of things happened. First thing, I always look to Martin Brundle as a voice of kind of fatherly wisdom when I'm listening to it. And if he turns around and says that was dangerous, and the first thing he said was like, I thought that was great driving.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I think Lando, after the race, said, if you see a gap that wide and that big and you don't go for it, you have no place being an F1. And I also think that's fair. I totally get how Piastri would feel. Like you're going into a corner and you're not expecting, you're giving space, you're not expecting to get rammed into by your teammate. But at the same time, there was the footage of Piastri seeing Lando come up and drifting towards the center of track and coming off the racing line. So I think pretending that Piastri wasn't aware that an opportunity was developing for Lando in that moment would not be true. I think he was tucked in behind Max, looked in his wing mirror, saw Lando coming up and drifted into the middle. So he knew that he was going to have to choose whether to stick with Max or to kind of try and block Lando. Look, all to say, the FIA came back and said, the stewards came back and said, racing incident. The other thing I would say is McLaren's dealing of it with Piastri was really, really interesting. they kind of said, yeah, we're looking into it. It's, just carry on, focus on your drive. And then they came back again and said, oh, the stewards have said, that it's a racing incident. And you could tell they were handling his ego and his competitive spirit. And I thought that was really interesting to watch. Imagine being a race engineer and having someone really, really upset on the other end of the phone to you in the middle of a race, feeling like they've been... And I don't doubt that Piastri felt like he'd been done poorly there, like any of us would if we'd been banged into by our teammate. But the way they handled it is like... It just felt so kind of, prescribed and well delivered, I think. And he would know that as well. Piastri would have known they're just calming me down, but they're not going to give that position back. But that's what he was asking, right? He was asking for the position back.
But fair dues. I mean, don't
really?
Ask, don't get. I mean, what do you expect? Is he just going to say, yeah, okay, I guess I just accept P4 now? I think it's that
you're
right.
Play on
both
right.
sides.
You've got to ask. You've got to ask.
What is it?
You've got to ask.
If you spot a gap in your radio engineer's logic and then you don't try and get through it, then are you still a racing driver? He did the same thing in Silverstone when he got the penalty for erratic driving behind the safety car. Then he said to the team, if you agree that was unfair, then you should ask Lando to give me the place back. And you just think, well, it's opportunism. I think also with Piastri, the pain of that moment of being sort of nudged aside at turn 3 is at Singapore, it's just, it's hard to overtake there, as we saw in the race. So he thought maybe if we can get through lap 1 unscathed, then I'm probably a lock for P3. Norris is probably a lock for P4, P5. So I can get, a few points more of a lead over him in the championship and without there being any major swing. But then he gets nudged aside. Norris goes like the clappers after Verstappen, and they drop Piastri in the laps after that. Piastri was 4 or 5 seconds back easily, and Norris was staying in the dirty air behind Verstappen, which was incredible to watch throughout pretty much the whole race.
So basically the whole race.
The whole race. He was just like 1 to 2 seconds behind Verstappen. That was super impressive. So on the sum of
with a broken front wing.
I don't know how much that contributes, frankly. I think on
Are
that
you joking?
Evidence, yeah.
It was hanging off like that.
Yeah, but it's just the end plate. The end plate doesn't do that much around a street track like that.
Oh my goodness!
I'm not saying it wasn't good driving.
I'm gonna get you down to the aero tunnel, and we'll run some. I've actually got a mate who works at the McLaren tunnel, and we'll get down there and we'll bend the wing out, and we'll see how much that affects race pace.
Okay.
I'm joking. No, but like with damage, like you can say, oh, I don't think that matters, but driving with damage and to follow up on your point, in dirty air for the whole race, I mean, I guess that's why he never really stood a chance of taking Max towards the end, or maybe Max was just too quick, but I don't know.
I think with Max, it's racecraft. He's got that sixth sense when it comes to car placement. And I never thought that Lando stood much of a chance of getting past Max. And then when they were going through the back markers, I thought, okay, here's an opportunity. Should something come unstuck, but nothing did. Yeah.
I mean, he was down to like at some points half a tenth, wasn't he?
What do you mean?
Sorry, half a tenth. Sorry, that's half a second. He was down to like half a second behind Max for like multiple opportunities, but. I don't know. That track is not really an overtaking track. It's pretty tough, isn't it?
Well, not if you just paid attention to the broadcast and you didn't realise that there were overtakes happening, but they just weren't showing them. There were loads of overtakes happening further back. Speaking also of engineers dealing with angry drivers, I wouldn't want to be Fernando Alonso's race engineer for any money. That dude puts up with a lot. That cranky Alonso. But thank God for cranky Alonso, because he was pulling off move after move, and he ended up finishing P7. He found a way right up to the back of Hamilton, and he almost caught him at that last part of the race when Hamilton's brakes failed. Fernando Alonso, he almost caught him because Lewis Hamilton was going around 15 seconds slower that last lap, He didn't quite make it, but then because Hamilton went off track so many times in that last lap, he got a penalty and got they flipped it around after the race.
I just think stuff like that is just it's so F1. So like you're driving the fastest race car on a track in the world, your brakes fail, so you can barely keep it on the track, and they give you a 5-second penalty because you like go over the lines too many times. Just like there is just no grace, and I'm just like, surely, because I mean I was watching the clock for those. I don't know if anyone else was following this really closely, but I was watching the timing sheet and thinking like, oh my gosh, is Lewis going to be overtaken by Alonso on the last lap because he's must be lifting and coasting through every corner, right? Because he can't brake properly anymore. And I think it actually got down to like, did it get down to like, it got down to less than half a second, didn't it, across the line?
I don't think it was that close. I think it was more like...
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was more like 8 or 9 seconds. So he still had some margin, but
8 or 9 seconds.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You can fact.
I think it got down to. I think it got down to about half a second.
We will, dear listeners, we will fact check ourselves on this. But he didn't do it on track. But Hamilton must have been just sort of cutting chicanes like you wouldn't believe.
He's just had such a rough. That guy has had such a rough year. Finally, Lewis Hamilton qualifies ahead of Charles Leclerc, and then his brakes fail. It's just like, what karma is coming for this poor man? Like, has he not? Oh gods of F1, has he not suffered enough? He got robbed of being the greatest driver of all time, even though he is statistically. He got robbed of that by manipulated rules, and then suddenly Mercedes just falls apart with no side pods for about 3 years. Then he moves to Ferrari, gets out-qualified and outraced by his teammate, struggles to get to grips with the car, and just so much stuff happens. I'm just like, please let something okay happen to Hamilton next year.
And Roscoe,
please, like whether you're a Hamilton fan or not, let something good happen to the man.
Yeah,
and his dog dies.
His dog died last week.
His dog dies.
Yeah, it's tragic.
I mean, it isn't. I mean, Gaza's tragic, but granted, a dog dying is somewhat sad.
Personal loss, mate. That's what it is. It's personal loss. We're all humans.
It's all relative. It's all relative.
We're all humans at the end of the day. Yeah, amazing. But speaking of Mercedes, again, briefly, as you were, I was so happy for Russell because I don't know if you know, Singapore is his bogey track as well. He's crashed 4 of the last 4 times that they've been there. And so for him to be able to figure Singapore out and to be able to win so emphatically like he did the other night, I thought that was just a brilliant moment for his career, especially in the context of him leading the team, but still not having a contract for next year. And with this upstart, Antonelli
he's got a contract. He's got a contract. Look, I'm really sorry to tell you, Jace, but there is actually no more room left in the house to be happy for George Russell.
Rats.
Because he is so pleased with himself. He's basically taken the whole pie of being happy for George, and he has co-opted it for himself. And I think when I opened Instagram this morning, which I shouldn't have done because it's brain rot, but when I did, all I saw was a picture of George in a hotel lobby with a towel over him, his shirt off because he's very proud of his body, I think, eating a club sandwich and drinking a gin and tonic, saying, "Good night, Singapore." And I was just like, oh, no one is happier for George than George. It's just... Anyway, so yes, I'm sorry, mate. You won't be able to be happy for him because it's actually all been bought up. That land has been bought.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a hot property these days. Okay, fair enough. Done. I jest. I've got a little bit to say about McLaren, but not a lot. I mean,
I'd love to hear.
Congrats, I guess. You should have done it last round.
Oh, sorry. In terms of
they finally wrapped up the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, they did.
Bully for them. Second year running. They haven't done that in a long time. Even when they won 2 Drivers' Championships back to back in the late 90s, they didn't do they didn't get the Constructors' Championship. So it's a long time since they've had something like this kind of success. But yeah, they really need to get their eye back on the ball for that Drivers' Championship. They could easily lose that.
They'll get it, mate. They'll get it.
Okay. What did you make of Sainz finishing so well? He was the biggest winner probably this round. He started P18.
18, yeah.
Got the last point. I mean, that's nuts. And also for him to go from being on the podium last round to starting so poorly this round and then finishing in the points. I mean, what a roller coaster of emotions for that guy.
He essentially swapped places with Hulkenberg, yes, who started in P11 and ended up plumb last. Do you know what? Like, you were so right on this race. There was so little coverage of the mid and lower field that I wasn't really following. I mean, were you following Sainz's race?
No, not at all.
But whatever he did great. So well done, Sainz.
Yeah, equally. And it was a head scratcher all round because I saw Lawson make a comment that one lap he was just ahead of him. Sainz was just ahead of Lawson. And then something happened. And then Sainz was like 4 or 5 cars up the road. And he was saying, I'm going to have to go back and have a look at this because I have no idea how that happened. Well, dear listener, this episode didn't quite make it to the checkered flag, just like a typical George Russell weekend in Singapore. But like this weekend in Singapore for George Russell, we will bounce back better and bigger next time when we reconvene again for the 2025 USA Grand Prix debrief. We're really very much looking forward to the race at COTA. It's a sprint weekend, so we get more F1, all you can eat and then some. And it's also at one of the best tracks on the circuit, something Gavin and I can agree upon. So until then, stay tuned for the next installment of the 2025 F1 season with all its ups and downs, literally, from COTA. And we will catch you here next time round. So, see you then.